Long ago, in the heart of Lowland, where the waters of Lake Victoria shimmered under the African sun, there lived a young warrior named Omuklela. He was the pride of Nyakach, a village rich in tradition and deeply rooted in the customs of their ancestors. Omuklela, the son of the chief, was admired of his bravery in battle and his devotion to the gods of the Luo people. His father, Chief Ochieng, had always taught him that the strength of their people came from their faith in the spirits of the land, the lake, and the ancestors. One year, when the rains failed and famine struck, the people of Nyakach were desperate. As crops withered and the waters of Lake Victoria began to recede, rumors spread that strangers had arrived in the village. These foreigners, the missionaries, came from distant lands, carrying strange books and speaking of a foreign God, a God who promised salvation to those who would follow him. The elders of the village were wary. These foreigners bring change, Chief Ocheng said to the gathering council, and with change comes danger. The council, seated around a fire, nodded in agreement. The traditional symbols of their power, spears, shields, and carved masks, lined the walls of the chief's hut, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch towards an uncertain future. But Omuklela was curious. Unlike the elders, he was not entirely opposed to hearing the words of the missionaries. One evening, he ventured to the edge of the village where the missionaries had set up a small chapel. There, he listened as a young missionary named Father John spoke of a God who forgave all sins and brought peace to the hearts of men. Besides him stood Anna, a soft-spoken woman who sang hymns in a language foreign to Omuklela's ears, yet beautiful in its melody. As the days passed, Omuklela returned again and again to hear the teachings of the new faith. His heart was torn. On one hand, he held deep respect for the custom of his people. On the other, he was drawn to the message of love and forgiveness that the missionaries spoke of. Omuklela's visit did not go unnoticed. His younger brother, Otieno, had also been attending the sermons, much to the dismay of their father. Chief Ocheng was furious when he found out. "You are the future of this village," he roared at Omuklela. "How dare you entertain the words of these foreigners? Do you wish to betray your people and the ancestors who have protected us for generations?" Omuklela, filled with conflict, lowered his gaze. "Father," he said quietly, "I do not seek to betray our people, but perhaps there is room for both our traditions and the teachings of the new God." The chief's eyes darkened. There can be no compromise with those who seek to destroy our way of life. "You must choose, Omuklela. Will you remain loyal to your people, or will you follow this foreign God?" Torn between his love for his family and his growing belief in the Christian teachings, Omuklela sought solace by the shores of Lake Victoria. There, the gentle waves lapped against the shores as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Muklela stared at his reflection in the water, wondering if the ancestors were watching him, guiding him towards a decision. He felt the weight of the entire village on his shoulders. Meanwhile, the tension in the village grew. Otieno, emboldened by his faith in Christianity, openly defied the chief and continued attending the missionaries' sermons. The villagers whispered about the chief's sons, one a loyal defender of the Luo traditions, the other a traitor who had forsaken his people for the foreign god. The conflict between the brothers mirrored the large struggle within the village, the old ways versus the new. One night, during a council meeting, Otieno stood before the elders and challenged the authority of his father. "Father," he said, "the people are suffering. The gods of our ancestors have turned away from us. The Christian God promises hope and salvation. Why do we not give him a chance?" The council, surrounded by a cultural artifact, bearded necklaces, carved statues of ancestors, and the sacred drums, fell silence. Chief Ochieng's face was a mask of fury. "You have betrayed us, Otieno. You and those who follow these new gods are no longer welcomed in this house." The village was now divided. Omuklela, caught between his loyalty to his father and his love for his brother, knew he had to act. That night, as the moonlight shimmered on the surface of Lake Victoria, Omuklela prayed both to the ancestors and to the Christian God, seeking guidance. The next day, Omuklela stood before the council and his father. "I have made a decision," he said. "I will not abandon the ways of our ancestors, for they are part of who we are. But I will also not turn away from the teachings of the Christian God, for they offer hope in a time of darkness." Chief Ochieng looked at his son. His expression softened. "You seek to unite the old and the new," he said quietly. "Perhaps there is wisdom in your words, my son." The village, inspired by Omuklela's decision, began to find a delicate balance between the traditions of their ancestors and the new teachings of Christianity. Some continued to worship the old gods, while others embraced the Christian faith. But the division that once threatened to tear the village apart slowly began to heal. And so, the winds of change swept through the Luo land, not as destructive force, but as a gentle breeze that carried with it the promise of a future where both the old and the new could coexist.